Everyday Apostle, where ordinary lives meet extraordinary faith. Join our host, Kendall Peterson, as we explore how everyday men and women bring the gospel to life wherever they live, work, and play. Let's dive into it right now.
Hello, and welcome to episode 21 of the Everyday Apostle podcast. I'm your host, Kendall Peterson. It is a pleasure to be here to welcome another guest in our episode and really to share stories of people living their faith, whether they're new in their faith or old in their faith, just people living their faith in the day-to-day lives. This is episode 21, and I realized this morning as I was preparing for this episode that this has been 11 months that I've been doing this show. And I just want to tell you guys, I appreciate greatly all of the notes, the emails, the text messages, the in-person back and forth that I get with people thanking me for doing the show. But it tells me that people are actually listening, and that's why we're doing this, so that we can share this message of Christ's love with everybody, and that it's okay yourself to also share that message. So today I have a very special guest who I just recently met. Today joining me in the studio is Laura Garcia. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I roped her into this really last minute. This is something we talked about over the weekend, so I'm incredibly grateful that she joined me on the show. I'm going to read a little bio about Laura and give you a little background on her, so we know who we're talking about. So today on the Everyday Apostle podcast, I'm excited to introduce someone whose journey into faith is as honest as it is inspiring. Laura was born in Cuba and came to the U.S. at a young age. She was raised in a non-religious household and even once refused baptism. So faith wasn't exactly on her radar growing up, but as an adult, Laura encountered the Catholic Church with fresh eyes and an open heart, thank goodness. Through the Rite of Christian Initiation in Adults, or the RCIA program, she began to explore the faith with intention, curiosity, and, as I've witnessed, a determination that's hard not to admire. It's a journey that's still unfolding, but one that already speaks volumes about the power and grace and the beauty of choosing faith consciously and freely. And I would love to point out this past Saturday at the Easter Vigil at St. Augustine Catholic Church, Laura received her first sacraments, the sacraments of initiation. That is baptism, confirmation, and Holy Communion. And it was a real joy for me to witness. It really was. Outside of her spiritual journey, Laura is the co-owner of Oasis Retreat Miami, a plastic surgery recovery home that blends care, hospitality, and healing. She holds a degree in biochemistry from Florida International University and somehow still finds time to enjoy life with her wonderful boyfriend, Manny. I'm really looking forward to this episode. I'm looking forward to where this goes. So let's get started. Laura, so in the intro, we talk about how you were born in Cuba. How old were you when you moved from Cuba?
So I was blessed, my mom was blessed to have what's called the bonbon in Cuba. So she was actually able to bring me very young. Okay. I'm practically American, but born in Cuba. I came here when I was 1.5 years. I don't remember Cuba like at all.
At all. Have you been back ever? Never been back. Okay.
One day I will. I would like to see my roots, see where my mom grew up, where I was born. But for now, it's not even on the radar.
Okay. So I've met your mom. Wonderful, wonderful woman. Are you okay talking a little bit about your father? About is he in the picture?
We can talk about him, but I won't have much to say.
Okay. I don't want to put you on the spot.
No worries. He's not in the picture. He hasn't been for a couple years now.
Okay. So your mom takes a big gamble, right? Wins the lottery and brings you to this massive country called the United States of America.
Yes.
And did you guys settle in Miami?
We did.
Initially?
Yeah, we've only ever lived in Miami here in the States.
Okay.
And I love it. I mean, raised here, only place I've really called home.
Okay. Did you have family here that you were able to come to, or did you
It
just
was just my mother and I.
wow.
She came all by herself with a 1.5-year-old baby.
Talk about courage, huh? That's amazing.
Super inspiring, yes.
So it's you and your mom, and you're growing up. You get to live in the sun and the tropical life, kind of like Cuba, but on the American side of
Right.
things. What was that like? How did you go to school, like regular public school, or?
I did. I went to regular public school my entire life. And I mean, I have no complaints about it. I loved it. I loved my experience with everything. Given I went to public school, I had no religious teaching at all. So I didn't come from my mom, as you said. In the intro, I didn't have any religious background. So it didn't come from my mom and it didn't come from school. Public school, however, again, I loved it. I personally had a really good experience with it. I know others don't, but I loved it.
Okay.
It really wasn't, yeah, it was pretty easy, I would say. It was my normal.
Right.
I knew nothing else. So
yeah, you don't know what
I
you're
don't know
missing
what
if
I
you're
don't
not
know.
missing it,
Right.
Yeah. So do you have a recollection ever of like having a yearning to learn more about God or Jesus or who all these characters are?
I did. This is not something that kind of just came out of the blue. I think it was in like 4th grade, more or less. All of my friends were going to these extra classes outside of school. And I'm just like, where are all my friends going? Why is nobody available to hang out with me? And I later learned that they were doing their CCD classes. And I told my mom, I'm like, hey, I want to do this too. All my friends are doing it. I want to do it too. I want to learn what this is. She put me in there. It was in Mother of Christ at the time on Coral Way and 142nd. And I was there. I think I was there for a few classes. I don't recall how many, but I was there for a few classes. And I actually eventually told my mom to just take me out. I was like, take me out, because it didn't feel normal to me at the time. I was the only person asking any questions at all. And it just didn't sit right with me at the time. And I actually left. And throughout the years, I've had multiple friends who were raised religious. And their parents would try to get me to go to church. And it just never really stuck with me. I would also like to mention I never went to a Catholic church. So I never, saw anything that had to do with the Eucharist or really like Jesus's presence there with you. So that didn't stick until recently when I finally was introduced to the Catholic Church.
Okay. So you're growing up, pretty normal life.
Very secular,
CCD.
yeah. Tried it,
Wasn't your thing.
Wasn't my thing. Too young, immature, I don't know, lack of experience, lack of teaching, I would say, because again, I didn't grow up religious. So this was kind of like all new information being dumped on me. And I'm just like, whoa, like what even is any of this? Who is Jesus? Who is God? What is going on? What are these 10 commandments? What are these things that I can't do? Why can't I do them? Just so many questions. And imagine I'm a little girl, like, and nobody's explaining anything to me in that way. So it was too new or too much for me, I guess.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. So typical high school life, and then you decide it's time for college, and you chose FIU.
I chose FIU. Yeah. I mean, again, growing up in Miami, everything being so nearby, elementary, middle, high, and then FIU is kind of just like the place to be, I guess. There was also UM, but I did get a better offer from FIU. And yeah, it was closer, everything. It just all worked out. FIU, I loved it.
Okay. So you studied biochemistry.
I did.
That's not something I hear a lot. What were you thinking you would want to do with that?
So I always wanted to be a doctor. And I started off with a biology degree. And then I said, let me challenge myself, because why not? And I wanted to stand out a little bit more in terms of application. So I was like, let me take the more rigorous classes. Let me delay, because I was already advanced also. I did what's called the dual enrollment program.
Mhm.
So the last 2 years of high school were done in college. So I was taking both high school and college credits at the same time. So I was advanced 2 years. I was like, I can afford to delay my graduation a little bit because I'm already advanced. So then I switched from biology to biochem. And that was that. Ask me. Again, we spoke about this. I'm like, ask me if I use my degree. I don't use my degree.
Right. You probably do, right? That's a little bit of the misconception, right? You learned a lot about how to learn and ask questions,
Right.
but
We talked about that. Yes. So the skills that I definitely did pick up on skills, but the material itself, that's just in the back of my head now.
yeah. So it sounds like that was kind of past tense. I wanted to be a doctor, I
Yeah.
noticed.
Yes. So recently, I would say probably like in the past 2 months, um, life has kind of changed its course and my trajectory has now shifted. I did want to be a doctor. But then time kind of was going by and then my heart wasn't in it the way that it used to be. And I also, one of the main things was, I mean, as a woman and as a future mother, I want to be there for my kids and I want to be there raising them and being present in their lives, not missing events. And that was kind of hard to do. It would be kind of hard to do as a doctor. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's just no longer, again, what my heart is yearning for.
Has that been replaced by something else or not yet? Just kind of a
So thankfully, my mom and I do have this business that I've always, always loved. And I've always thought, okay, I can either give this 100% or I can give this 100%. And I tried the doctor, I did the MCATs, I was in the application process, like everything. And then my heart kind of started changing and just the way of me thinking, because another thing was that when I really wanted to be a doctor, I was also single. I'm 3 years into my wonderful relationship now, and obviously things are getting a little bit more serious and mentality's changing. So again, the whole motherhood and everything. Luckily, I do have my business, which again I love, and now that is what I plan to dedicate my time to.
excellent.
My professional time, of course.
Right. So you're moving along, you start this business, you come out of college, and how long have you guys had this business?
It kind of started like an unofficial thing. We were kind of like, let's try this out, see how it goes. We were like, okay, yeah. Had our first few clients. I mean, everybody was happy. We were doing well. And then we just kind of took the steps that were required to officiate it. But we've been doing this for about 10 years now.
Okay. Oh, so that's a long time. So you're busy with that. You finish school and you're all in on that. You meet Manny, you've got a full life. And so at some point it strikes you that you want to add something more to that full life. So tell me a little bit.
So funny enough, it wasn't even so much my choice. It was kind of like my boyfriend's family. They grew up religious 100%, like generations. And they would always go to church, to Sunday mass, and they would always invite me. I think for like the first year of our relationship, they'd be like, "Hey, Laurita, you want to come to church with us?" I'm like, "No, sorry, I'm busy. I have to study. No, sorry, I'm busy. I have to work. No, sorry, I'm tired."
What were you thinking?
Always an excuse. Always an excuse. Honestly, again, I had tried it once before. Not even once. I tried it multiple times because again, my friends' parents would try to take me and it just wasn't my thing.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna like it. Like I just don't want to, I don't want to be there and just sit and not know what to do. Right? Like I feel like I would be a poser. Like, what am I doing there? And time would go by. And I actually spoke to my mom, the non-religious person, and she's the one that told me, she's like, "Mamita, if it's that important to them, you should take part. Because if you really want to build a relationship with this person, it's also with their family." And I said, "You know what? You're right." And the next time they invited me to go to mass, I accepted. And that the rest is history. I mean, what can I tell you? I loved it. I loved it. Even though I had no idea what to do. Everybody would stand up. Okay. Oh, we're standing up. Okay. We're sitting down. Okay. We're kneeling. All right. I had no idea what to do, but the priest's words and the homily, it spoke to me in a way that nobody else could have. And I loved it. And we walked out of church and I told them, I'm like, that was amazing. I love it. I want to go back. Let's do it. Yes. And they were like, that was probably the worst mass we have ever been to. And I said, what? There is no way. I felt so touched, so moved. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, if this was the worst mass you've been to, I have so much to look forward to because it only gets better from here. And I would go with them to mass whenever I could. Funny enough, the church that they first took me to wasn't even here in Miami. It was in St. Augustine. It was up in Dade City. I don't even know the name of the church. I can't tell you. But that was the first time I had been to a Catholic church. And funny enough, the very last mass I went to before getting baptized was that same one.
Really?
And then they introduced me, throughout the time to St. Augustine. I even went to Little Flower once, but what can I say? I love St. Augustine.
That's amazing. And it really speaks to kind of that personal relationship, right? That I think it's easy to discount, right? Everybody that comes into church gets the same experience. We all receive it the same way, but that's not true. Jesus has a personal relationship with us. So it's going to come at you in the way you need to hear it, right? He's speaking to you. The real question is, are you listening? And are you paying attention? Or are you distracted?
Right.
And it sounds like you were paying attention that day and he got your attention.
Thankfully.
That's awesome. So you got this taste for mass and you really enjoyed mass. But going to mass and enjoying mass is different than committing to everything that goes into RCIA.
100%.
So what was that decision like?
So again, I had been to, at this point, a few masses, and I told Sue, which is my boyfriend's mom, I said, hey, I love this. How can I be more involved? How can I, fully immerse myself in this experience? And she put me in contact with Michelle. She said, talk to her, see what it is that is right for you. She told me about the RCIA program, which, by the way, is now OCIA. And I said, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I was like, how much do I have to pay? She's like, no, it's free. Like, we do this. We love to do this. We do this for you. This is just like our thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's weird, but okay. And I'm just like, people are really doing this, like, out of the goodness of their hearts, just coming every day. It was weird to me. It was strange, something new. But I did it. I did the whole program. What can I say? All the things that I learned, all the questions that I had. I mean, I still have questions, but like the main ones, everything was answered for me. Everything was answered for me. And everything, I think the most important thing, given I have like such a STEM background, it had to make sense. It had to be concrete. And it did. It made all the sense in the world.
Kind of had that same revelation when I had a similar path. I was, really struck, and then decided that it made sense, right? In a logical sense. It's like, okay, this makes sense. And then I went through RCIA. And I remember right at the end of RCIA, before we had the big, Easter vigil, I was sitting, I wound up in the main sanctuary. There was no mass going on. I sat in the very last row, and I was running through all of the little things that I had learned, all of the little things that I had studied on my own, all of it. And it was so logical in my mind, which is funny because the counter argument is there's no logic to it. It's just your heart. No, it is completely logical. It makes perfect sense.
It's
right?
history.
Yeah.
It's history. It happened. It makes sense. It's in the books. Like, there's just too much proof for it to not be true.
Right.
Too much.
So you go through all of that, and you're inching your way toward Easter Vigil, which for those of us that are, are a member of the church and Catholic, and we see you guys, popping in and out of mass. We see your classes going on. Obviously, I was involved in that as well. And we get so excited. And this was a big group. How many in total?
It was huge. I think we were like 70.
Yeah.
If not 70, very close, like 68, something like that. Very big class. I think it was actually one of the biggest. Even Father Vigoa came into the room one time and he was like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing.
It is.
I don't think he had ever seen so many people.
It was absolutely amazing to watch. And so we get super excited, right? We talk about, oh, Easter's coming. Oh, and we get to watch these guys participate in their sacraments for the very first time. And I had an interesting vantage point, right? I was a sponsor for two gentlemen that were going through, and but the outside perspective is very different, having gone through it. Also, it's very different than the personal perspective that you got. So talk to me a little bit about what Saturday evening was like for you, maybe even in your preparation as you were getting close, what was going on in your head?
Preparation, my heart was like palpitating the entire day. The entire day. It felt, and I even told my boyfriend, and my boyfriend told his mom, and she was like, yeah, that's what it's like. And I'm like, no, I feel like it felt like my wedding day. I was just so like, oh my gosh, the jitters, and I have to, I have to look good and I have to be presentable, and oh my gosh, like I can't cry. My makeup, I have to look good in the pictures, and I was just like so full of emotion. I was so happy. I was so excited. I was so nervous. It felt like my wedding day. Like I was getting married. I was, becoming part of something greater than myself and committing to something for the rest of my life.
That's right. Well, you basically were, right?
I did.
You were Christ, who's the bridegroom,
Yeah.
right? Marries the church, and you become part of the church. Then you're part of that marriage, which is super special. And then there's the other part of the marriage that you'll get to eventually.
Yes, I'm aware.
Even more.
I'm aware. Got to take it with the ups and the downs.
That's right. So let's start with baptism. You're there. They call everybody up front. For those of you that weren't there, don't remember, or have never experienced it, we have Easter Vigil Mass in the church. It is on Saturday evening before Easter. It is the Mass of celebration. It is the Mass that comes after basically the 3 days of quiet, to symbolize those 3 days after Jesus went into the Garden of Gethsemane and he's taken away from the apostles and he goes through his whole passion, and then is resurrected on the end of that. So in those 3 days, we're excluded from Jesus. He's covered anywhere that he is in the church. We don't have normal masses. I mean, there's a lot that goes on, and so we have a yearning for him with Easter, and then Easter Vigil's kind of that big one. But also during the Easter Vigil, all of the catechumens, all of those that are joining the church, and this is all over the world, which is really amazing to think about, right? So we have 70 or so people just at St. Augustine, plus all over the world. They're joining the church in that Mass. So it's very exciting. So at one point in the Mass, they bring everybody up, and there you are, and you receive a blessing, and you kind of go through that, and then it's time for your baptism. What were you thinking when, aside from, I'm afraid that my makeup is going to be ruined or all of that, but what were you thinking maybe spiritually as you're kind of in the line making your way to the baptismal font?
I was just ready to be received by Christ, ready to receive his grace, ready to be loved, ready to be part of the community. I'm getting emotional now.
Well, and I saw you get emotional that evening. It was fun to watch the people as they do that, and the water's on them, and the blessing is said, and the sacrament's complete, and everybody's coming back, and there's almost like this euphoric glow, right? Which is amazing, and that whole sacrament is when you then become part of the body of Christ, right?
Right.
Which is a super special feeling. Then it's time for confirmation, right? So we're back in line and everybody's there, and you receive the sign of the cross on you with an oil called chrism that is specially blessed for that purpose. How did that feel to you versus, say, baptism?
That was more kind of like, yes, you really did this. All of the time that you spent, all of the books that you read, the information you obtained, everything, it kind of just really settled. And again, it's in the name. It just confirmed everything for me.
So it sounds almost like baptism was more of an emotional experience, and the confirmation was more the
I would say
intellectual,
so.
it's real.
I would say so, because I was holding back tears during the baptism. I think even Father Vigo noticed. He was like trying to wipe my face. And yeah, during the confirmation, I was more, a little bit more calm. I was like, yes, I'm doing this. I'm ready. This is done. And it was just that completion, that satisfaction.
And then the last of the sacraments for you that evening was
the
to
best,
receive the actual
receiving
body of Christ.
Jesus.
Tell me about that.
I had been waiting for that. What can I say? It felt amazing not having to cross my arms anymore, and receive the blessing in a different way, in a more wholesome way, in the way that Jesus intended us to receive him. It was everything I could have expected and more.
That's
and
awesome.
It tasted yummy.
You won't hear too many people say that, but it's got a special taste when you're certainly when you're doing it for the first time, but also when you know what you're doing, right? And as Catholics, we believe that is truly, through the process of transubstantiation, that is truly the body of Christ. So there's no closer intimacy, right, and fulfillment of that ritual than when we do that. So yeah, it tastes yummy because we know what it's doing to our soul.
That's most what I meant. Just what it means to us Catholics, what makes us Catholics.
That's awesome. Well, it was amazing to watch all of that, and thank you for allowing me, at least on the periphery, to be a part of that journey. So we're getting close to the end of our time already, but
yeah, that was fast.
it does go fast. But I guess the last question or so that I have for you is, now what? Now what do you do with all of
now
that?
What?
Yeah.
That is a great question. I was actually just talking to my group members about this the other day, about how can I live my faith in a way that shows the world I'm not hiding anything. I'm not embarrassed of anything. And number one started with obviously continuing to go to Mass, but becoming more involved with the church, maybe even going to the young adult group and doing more of the volunteer opportunities that they have. And just being more accepting and praying for people, because I think people need to be prayed for. I think we all need to be prayed for. And just spreading that love that I have received, that we all have, that people need. So just being a better version of myself for others, for me, for God, for just to share that love and that grace.
It's amazing. I think if you do all of that, then that's all anybody could ever ask. And I'm sure that's what Jesus is asking. And that's what we highlight on the show, on the Everyday Apostle. That's why I thought you would be perfect, a perfect guest, is because I could tell that was in your heart, even though we never really talked about that. I could tell that was in your heart. So thank you for sharing. And unfortunately, we're out of time. I could literally sit and I have a million other questions for you. But for everybody that's listening, there were a couple of really great messages, right? Go to Mass. Go encounter Christ yourself and feel what that is. Feel his love, feel his forgiveness, feel all of that. And pray for the show. And let's see if we can keep this going. Thank you. This is Kendall Peterson on The Everyday Apostle. Have a great week.
Thanks for tuning in to The Everyday Apostle. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, on your favorite podcast outlet, and at our website at everydayapostle.com. Until next time, stay blessed.